Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of this very casual series titled Metaverse Moments with me, Matt, here with Metaverse Texas, a branch of Chase Reality. So, in this very casual series, I'm going to essentially be condensing all of the information that I've learned over the last 6 months, essentially, of deep diving into the process of creating virtual experiences from reality itself. So, in this multi part casual series, I'm going to be sharing with you resources on individuals that have taught me everything that I know, YouTube channels, workarounds, and some pretty cheeky cheats to make things a lot easier. So without further ado, let's get started. So the topic for this very first episode is essentially this: capturing reality for the metaverse, right? That's got to be the very first stage of creating a real world experience for the metaverse. You got to first capture reality. All right. And so there are multiple ways that we can go about doing this, right? So the methods that I've come across are here on the screen. There's a point and shoot method. That's the tried and true method of a 360 camera. There are so many cameras out there. An individual on YouTube by the name of Ben Claremont, his link is going to be in the description. This guy knows it all when it comes to 360 photos. There are a few pros and cons. I'll go into each one of these. In particular, for the point and shoot 360 camera, which you see here in the very center of your screen, it's the easiest approach for anyone just looking to pick up 360 photography literally as a hobby, or maybe wants to create a side hustle. It's going to be the easiest way for you to go about taking photos. It's the most accessible for pretty much everyone at every level. And they're pretty budget friendly too. There's a whole array. But when you get a chance to look at Ben Claremont's link that I'll share with you, you're going to see just he breaks it down. You're going to be able to make an informed decision as a consumer for yourself if this is the method you want to go. The next method is a DSLR or mirrorless method. That's going to be this janky camera you see over here. This is your traditional DSLR mirrorless camera, digital camera. The reason the pros for this one basically is it can produce extremely high quality images compared to a 360 camera. So yes, there is a lot more that needs to go into learning the process. It's a bit more tedious and there's more learning involved, but it produces much, much higher quality imagery than you're going to get from pretty much any point and shoot camera. I mean, I've literally worked with a $5,000 point and shoot 360 camera and my little $300 Sony A7 II can outproduce it like instantly. Like, it's just there's no comparison. So just keep that in mind. You can save a lot of money and you can produce much higher quality images for your virtual experiences if you go with the DSLR mirrorless method as opposed to a 360 camera. And then the final method here is really more of just an advanced approach to the middle one, the second one, the DSLR mirrorless. Uh, the the photogrammetry essentially is a sort of approach to photography slash a software that you work with that takes multiple photos of a space or an object and stitches it together into one three-dimensional space. Um, One of the pros for photogrammetry, unlike the DSLR mirrorless method, it still is going to provide really high quality images, but rather than the viewer being kind of stuck in just the place where the photo was taken, because it's a multitude of photos that stitch together an entire environment, your viewer can actually move around the space as if it was like a video game, utilizing the arrows on their keys or motion with their phones, whatnot. Like, it just allows for a lot more mobility. I forgot to mention the cons essentially for a point and shoot. Um, it's going to be dependent on budget. So the higher price you can spend on a point and shoot 360 camera, the better the quality. Um, it's probably the lowest quality images you're going to get from all three of these methods. The second one, the DSLR mirrorless, one of the cons or some of the cons is that it can be pretty costly. I've gotten away with just a $300 DSLR camera, but you can go, sky's the limit basically when it comes to the budget here. It does require more learning, like I mentioned. There's a larger margin for error. We'll go into that in a bit here, just a second. And like I mentioned, the viewer is basically kind of stuck in that one spot where you take the photo. And then photogrammetry, huge, huge learning curve. Like I have been wrapping my mind around photogrammetry with everything that my little brain has got for like the last 2, 3 months, and I'm barely scratching the surface. So a lot of learning involved with this. Um, and the process basically is still relatively new, so there's not a lot of resources out there. It's a lot of having to read between the lines, trial and error, and try things out basically and see how it goes. So those are basically the methods that I've come to know as valid methods to capturing reality for the metaverse. I specifically, though, am going to share with you in this series the DSLR mirrorless method because that's the one that produces the highest quality images and it's the one that I know the best. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, cool. So in terms of DSLR mirrorless methods, there is the greatest challenge in this is finding what's called the no parallax point. So with most lenses, there's a one special point around which you can rotate your camera and get no parallax. Now, what is parallax? Parallax is if, let's say, you were to put your finger in front of an object and then you close one eye and then swap to the other eye, you're going to notice that your finger almost kind of an optical illusion flip-flops from one side to the other. And so that doesn't do really well when it comes to 360 photos because if you're going to be stitching a bunch of photos together to create this spherical image, having objects kind of shift in perspective just does not lend to a solid 360 photo. In fact, it's not going to work. It just won't stitch together. So what we need to find is called the no parallax point, or NPP, which is the center of the lens's entrance or the pupil, and it's basically the center of perspective. And there is a really talented content creator on YouTube. His YouTube channel is called 360 Rumors. I'm going to put his link in the description below. And like before, when Ben Claremont was mentioned about anything you need to know about a point and shoot 360 camera, this guy from 360 Rumors has taught me every single thing I know about DSLR mirrorless methods. And like I said, I'm going to share the link with you in the description of this video. And honestly, this guy is just giving away the secrets, man. He knows it all, and I'm super grateful for him. Okay, and sorry. So in terms of the no parallax point, it can be super tedious, man. I was watching videos and like some people were hanging string on a window and like trying to gauge their camera against like a pole in the distance and like finding all these super special settings with all these crazy apparatus for holding the camera. And like I said, in this series, it's super casual, and I'm just giving you the synopsis. I'm giving you the cheat codes, basically, and I have found that there is a way to find the no parallax point only once, basically by just setting up a device I'm about to show you in the right manner, and you never, ever, ever have to worry about finding the no parallax point again. And literally, this solves the greatest challenge for taking 360 photos with a DSLR camera. It's basically going to save so much time and effort. And it is the Nodal Ninja R20. I'm going to put the link in the description below. It is a bit pricey. I want to say it's like about $220. I'm not really sure. It's in that range. All right, so believe me when I say that this Nodal Ninja R20 is just going to be everything you could ever want. It's going to make the process extremely simple. All right, so we talked about utilizing a DSLR camera, a mirrorless camera. In my case, it's a Sony A7 II, but you can utilize all sorts. So let's talk about what's the next important feature, which is the lens, right? So I, in my case, happen to use the Samyang 8mm 2.8 fisheye lens. Samyang is an excellent brand, super budget friendly. I want to say I picked mine up for like $150. And depending on the type of camera, the brand of camera you're using, you're essentially going to want to look for an 8mm fisheye lens. Now that's going to create an opportunity for you to take a photo that has a huge range, optical range. So you're seeing so much in a single shot. And the reason that's important is because you are going to be essentially taking 4 photos or in each 90-degree quadrant, right? So like this very simple diagram here on the right, you're going to take photos in this 90-degree quadrant, turn it take another photo, turn it, another photo, and turn it, another photo. So basically, with that 4-point turn, you're going to be able to capture the entire 360 dimensional space. 8mm fisheyes just lend to a really easy and smooth process, and combine that with the Nodal Ninja R20, it's going to be super, super smooth. Okay, so some other materials that you're going to want to consider for your setup, getting things started. Yes, the DSLR mirrorless camera. The next is a remote trigger, right? So I've actually used a remote trigger from Amazon that I'll share with you in the description that was like $9. The reason this is so important is that when you're taking photos in each of those 90-degree quadrants, you don't want your finger hitting that camera. Any sort of movement of the camera, motion blur, it's not going to lend to a really crisp photo. So you need to be able to trigger your camera remotely. And the one that I got that I started with had a wire to it, so like it was super cheap, but it was effective, and that's all you need really at the beginning. Next is a tripod or monopod. I use a monopod. I know plenty of folks that use a tripod, and they can be super cheap. So again, not a huge hit to the wallet, and it's super effective. And then finally, a computer or laptop. I started off with a laptop. Didn't really have a lot of like computer power behind it. Most laptops will be able to do the trick. So again, don't think you have to go anything too crazy here. Okay, and so with all this, we've talked about the DSLR camera, the lens. I've shared resources with you with these guys on YouTube that are going to be able to show you in depth, all the things that I'm talking about, remote triggers, tripods, all this good stuff. You might be thinking, okay, great, what's coming up with this software? Am I going to need Photoshop, Lightroom, all this crazy stuff? And the answer is yes, but also no. In my research, I found that utilizing software from Adobe is super useful, like Lightroom, Photoshop, things of that nature. But I learned of a super secret software. I guess it's not that secret, it's just not talked about very often. And it does everything for you. It HDR merges your photos. If you don't know what that is yet, that's okay. You're going to find out later. But it essentially merges your photos that you take in each of those 90-degree quadrants for you. And it creates super stunning professional level lighting in your 360 photos without you doing anything at all but clicking a button. And that super secret software is called PT GUI. Don't pronounce it any other way. PT GUI. I want to say it's free. I could be wrong. If it's not free, I apologize, but it's super cheap. This software is, like I said, I think free. It's a super, super well kept secret in the 360 photo realm because it just is so powerful. I don't know if that's the reason why it's not talked about, but I'm talking about it here because it's going to answer all of your needs. Trust me. Yeah, so, and I'll put a link in the description to get this as well. It does beautiful work. You're literally going to have 360 photos that look super professional and stunning. Okay, I mean, that pretty much concludes the first episode of the super casual Metaverse Moments with Matt series, where I basically share with you a quick synopsis on what I've learned, some incredible resources, and some pretty cheeky cheats and workarounds for making the most out of your money and time. On my next episode, we'll be talking about utilizing these 360 photos in a panorama editing software so we can actually start beginning the process of creating virtual experiences in virtual environments. So I look forward to that one. See you next time.